Hello, beautiful people. It's Lulu. If this is your first time listening, welcome to the Lulu Essey podcast. I'm so glad you're here. This podcast is a space for real, unfiltered conversations about mental health, or what I like to call mental fitness and personal growth. And there's no editing in this podcast, no polish, just honest dialogue that I hope gives you practical tools to transform your life from the inside out. Before we dive in, I want to be transparent for first-time listeners. What I share comes from my personal journey with bipolar disorder over the past 30 years, not from training as a mental health professional, although I am a certified life coach. What I offer are tools and insights that have helped me navigate my own mental health. They are complement professional care, not replace it. It is very important to me that this is not seen as advice, but rather a personal, first-hand experience that may be helpful to you and hopefully make you feel less alone and empowered to make positive adjustments to your life. My hope is you feel accepted without any judgment whatsoever. These conversations are in no way medical advice, and they can at the same time be immensely helpful. You get to decide that part. If something in today's episode resonates with you, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. The simple act of sharing could be exactly what someone else needs today to feel less alone. And it helps me grow this community immensely. I usually save this bit until the end, but it is really so important. These conversations matter. In our last episode, I opened up about returning to medication after being off it for several months. Today, I want to explore what true mental health support looks like, beyond just taking pills. In last week's episode, I shared that in December 2024, after 30 years on being on psychiatric medication, I stepped off completely with the support and with the guidance of my psychiatrist. It was monumental. A day I had longed for so long. But over the past while, things deteriorated due to intense stress at work. My insomnia and anxiety returned with a vengeance, and I made the difficult and painful decision to return to medication. My daily life became unmanageable, and the symptoms were persistent, and I was not able to perform usual daily tasks. It is important to draw this distinction and make this point clear. Despite everything I know and teach, I felt like I'd failed, and a huge amount of shame came along for the ride, even though I truly know there is no shame in any of this. And I'll be completely transparent. What I'm going through right now is a relapse, and I've needed to take some time off work to focus on rebuilding my mental health. Those words ripped at my soul to say out loud. Relapse, time off. But they're part of my reality right now, and possibly might be part of yours too. And I promised honesty, not perfection. A setback is one thing, but a relapse is something entirely different. And again, shame is right at my side. So you might be asking yourself, why record this podcast when I'm in this state? The answer is simple. Sometimes I need a little tiny thread to keep me connected, because without it, I could fall apart completely. And more than that, this conversation matters, and my commitment to you matters. The fact that it has taken a humongous amount of focus in the preparation of this episode, because I'm not operating on all cylinders. It's taken about 4 times at least the usual time and effort. And that's okay. I am happy to be here. But here's what I also want you to know. Relapse doesn't mean you're back at the beginning. You're not starting from scratch. You're starting from experience. And that makes a huge difference, even though it's still really painful. In last week's episode, I spoke about the gentle return, that space between complete darkness and light. And to be honest, I'm not fully there yet myself. These journeys have their own timing and rhythm, and sometimes we move back and forth between different phases. The concept remains valid, even as I'm still finding my way. And that's exactly the point about mental health journeys. They don't unfold in a straight, neat line. But here's the conversation I want to open with you. Firstly, going on medication is a deeply personal decision, and there is no one-size-fits-all approach, and it should be considered carefully. And I'm not here to advise for or against that. Medication is not there to help you when you're having a bad day. It is there when your mental health consistently impairs your ability to perform your daily tasks and to engage with life. However, what I do want to say is that medication isn't the whole solution. It's just one tool in a much larger toolkit. There's a dangerous misconception that taking pills means outsourcing your mental health to chemicals, that it somehow can be seen as the easy way out or a fix-all. I want to be as clear as possible. There is nothing, absolutely nothing easy about managing mental health conditions. And choosing medication when you need it isn't weakness, it's wisdom. And sometimes it is a literal lifeline. Yet, medication alone is never the complete answer. True mental fitness requires us to take responsibility and accountability for our whole selves, even when that includes medication. Mental fitness is like a garden. Medication might be the soil conditioner, but we still have to plant the seeds and water them and tend to the weeds and make sure that garden gets lots of sunlight in the right season, of course. I'm curious. Take a moment to reflect on which area of your mental fitness garden feels most neglected right now. Is it nutrition, movement, sleep, or something else entirely? This holistic approach includes our physical well-being, how we nourish and move our bodies, Being mindful of our food choices is critical. We all know the basics, and this is not a podcast about nutrition. However, nutrition can play a critical role in managing mental health. And you know what? The science here is actually fascinating. Researchers have found that our gut and our brain are constantly talking to each other through what they call the gut-brain axis. When we fill ourselves with processed foods, sugar, and unhealthy fats, that conversation gets disrupted, potentially increasing our risk of feeling anxious or depressed. But when we nourish ourselves with whole foods, vegetables, fruits, lean proteins, and healthy fats, we're actually supporting that vital connection. Now, I'm not saying that pizza causes depression or kale cures anxiety. It's so much more complex than that. But what we eat genuinely impacts how we feel, and that's something we can actually influence day by day. Take a moment and think about your relationship with food. Have you noticed any connections between what you eat and how you feel emotionally? This isn't about judgment. It's about awareness. And then there's emotional regulation, how we process and express feelings. Remember our key principles here: self-awareness, acceptance without judgment, and allowing ourselves to be where we're at. Knowing when we are ready to implement change and when we just need to sit with what is uncomfortable. Sitting with what is uncomfortable and resisting the urge to immediately fix is so important here. And this is where our practice from this moment only, from episode 20, can be incredibly helpful. When was the last time you allowed yourself to just sit with uncomfortable feelings instead of immediately trying to fix them? It's one of the hardest practices, isn't it? But it brings us amazingly supportive outcomes if we are willing to stay in that uncomfortable place. And then there's connection, our relationship with others and ourselves. Relationships are a tough one. Of course, the relationship we have with ourselves is the most crucial of all and requires nurturing and care. When you are struggling, keep your objectives simple. Be kind to yourself. And that also extends to those around you. It comes back to the kind witness exercise from episode 20. Be the kind witness to your own struggle and the struggles of those around you. It is hard to stay connected, but it's so critical. Even if you only have one person you feel safe enough to stay connected to, do it. And then there are mental practices like mindfulness. It's one of the key things I practice, and I use it all the time, but especially when I'm losing my grip on my thoughts and my mental state. Simply being in the moment, focusing on one task at a time, and bringing my full awareness to what I am doing and focusing everything on that, including my thoughts. And when I feel them straying, just gently bringing them back. For example, The simple act of washing my hands with mindfulness is such a beautiful moment, and it is radically simple. I bring my focus to the water that runs so freely from the faucet, the temperature, how it feels on my skin, how my hands move, the feeling of the soap, how it foams, and so it goes on. And even if that mindfulness lasts only for those brief moments, it creates space, it brings relief through awareness and perspective, and it helps us separate our thoughts from our feelings. When did you last practice mindfulness? Even if it was just for a moment, how did it affect your state of mind? Where is your mind when you make a cup of tea or coffee? Are you actually focusing on what you are doing? Or is your mind on your problems, what happened moments ago, yesterday, or what is likely to happen just after? And then we have our environment. What about your environment? For me, as I've shared with you before, having fresh flowers in my apartment brings me so much joy. And literally keeping things tidy helps my brain not to feel so out of whack. What is it for you? How can you adjust your environment to support you? Clear clutter and make your space feel nurturing. And this does not have to involve spending any money. Work with what you have. Look around you right now. What one small change could make your immediate environment more supportive of your mental well-being? Sometimes it's as simple as opening a window and letting some fresh air in, or clearing a surface. When we neglect any of these areas of our lives, the whole system that supports our mental health suffers. But when we nurture them all, we create a resilience that little else can match. And you don't have to master all of this at once. Even nurturing one part of your mental fitness garden can shift your day, your energy, your sense of self. Let it be imperfect. Let it be tiny. There's something else that I'd like to discuss that's been weighing on my mind. When we struggle with our mental health, and I can only speak from my own experience with bipolar, we can become irritable, almost to what feels like an uncontrollable point, agitated, and like your fuse is so short it's almost invisible. These are real symptoms. They're not character flaws. But here's the difficult truth I've had to face. Experiencing symptoms doesn't give us a free pass for bad behavior. Having bipolar disorder explains certain challenges, but it doesn't excuse lashing out at those around us. We still have responsibility for our actions, and we need to take accountability for how we show up in the world, even when we're influenced by our condition. This doesn't mean beating ourselves up when we slip, because we will. Because that's not helpful or kind, and it goes against our intention for self-compassion. But it does mean acknowledging what we do and how we behave has an impact on those around us, and being willing to make amends when needed, and continuously working on better ways to communicate and manage our emotions, especially with those closest to us. Taking accountability for our behavior actually helps regulate our nervous system by giving us a sense of agency and control rather than feeling at the mercy of our condition. I found myself lashing out unkindly at my partner when I felt like the agitation and the anxiety was like a virus crawling under my skin. It's not fair to them, and it's definitely not the kind, I cannot excuse it away because of where I'm at. Because where I'm at is pretty much a full-blown relapse. And still, I do my best to remember kindness first. I'm not always good at it. In fact, there are moments where I'm pretty awful to be around. And at the same time as with self-compassion, I find compassion for him too, and apologize, and more importantly, explain my behavior, not in a way that sounds like an excuse, but in a way that is a genuine attempt at connection. Think about a time when your mental health affected how you treated someone close to you. What would taking accountability in a situation look like without slipping into shame? I want to talk briefly about nervous system regulation, even though we could do a whole series of episodes on it, and there are people out there who specialize in it. But just for now, let's keep it really simple and just think of it as finding ways, practical ways, like breathing, like exercise, like good nutrition, like communication and self-compassion, and compassion for those around us, so that we can stay calm, stay regulated, and when we feel out of sync, using these tools to hold us. For now, let's not over-intellectualize or make it too complicated. Mindfulness is a wonderful way to regulate our nervous system. Notice right now, is your nervous system feeling calm and regulated, or are you feeling some activation? Just bringing this awareness to this state is actually a tiny step toward regulation. This ties directly back to our discussion about accountability, because a regulated nervous system makes responsible behavior possible. They support each other. When we own our actions, we reclaim our agency instead of feeling at the mercy of our condition. This may not sound like much, but it is immensely important, and it has a huge impact on us when we feel we have agency over our behavior. Now that we understand the importance of holistic fitness and personal accountability, I want to quickly look at what this might actually look like in practice. So what does this look like? Let me walk you through one messy, imperfect day filled with tiny deposits, the kind of day that still counts. Imagine waking up feeling low. Your first tiny deposit might simply be acknowledging how you feel without the judgment and possible disappointment. I'm noticing I'm feeling heavy today. Let it be. No fixing, no rushing with positivity, and no judgment. It's uncomfortable, I know, but that's emotional regulation in action, and I really do get how profoundly difficult this acceptance is. Next, instead of reaching for your phone and diving straight into social media, stay away. Commit to yourself not to look at your social media feeds for at least the first few hours of being awake. I love Marie Forleo's concept of create before you consume. So instead, take 3 conscious breaths, a tiny mindfulness deposit, hydrate, reach for a glass of water first thing after your breaths. And how about choosing a breakfast with protein rather than sugar? A small nutrition deposit that supports your brain chemistry. Protein will sustain you for longer, and your blood sugar won't suddenly plummet. While showering, try not to go through your list of things to do. List of things that could go wrong, things that are bringing you anxiety about your upcoming day, or the crap that went down yesterday that you are now overanalyzing. Instead, practice presence, mindfulness, by feeling the water on your skin just for 30 seconds. Another mindfulness deposit. And add a dash of gratitude with your mindfulness and feel genuine gratitude for how freely the water flows. During your commute or morning routine, send one genuinely caring text to someone you love. A connection deposit. At lunch, step outside for a few moments. You can manage 5, maybe 10. More if possible, but make it doable with where you are at. And that hit of fresh air and natural light will fill you right up, even if it's momentarily. A movement and environment deposit. And when overwhelm strikes in the afternoon, clear an area of your desk or a small space in your environment, and keep it small. I'm not talking heavy lifting here. This environment deposit can create a sense of control. And finally, before you go to bed, write down 3 things you managed today, no matter how small. A gratitude and celebration deposit in your mental fitness bank. Remember, we don't have to only feel gratitude for the big things, and likewise, we should always celebrate the so-called tiny wins. None of these actions are epic or heroic or time-consuming. They don't require special equipment or expertise or any money for that matter. They're just tiny moments of intention spread throughout an ordinary day. What would one tiny deposit look like for you today? Just one. Not a complete overhaul of your life or your routine. Just one small intentional action that your mental well-being matters. Remember, these tiny deposits work because they send a powerful message to your nervous system. I matter enough to take care of myself. That message, repeated consistently, changes everything. Let's talk about something that often gets overlooked in mental health conversations, and I'll keep this brief. The resistance we feel to doing the very things we know would help us. Have you ever found yourself thinking, I know meditation exercise, journaling would help me, but I just can't make myself do it. That resistance isn't a character flaw. It's a normal part of the human experience, especially when we're struggling. This resistance can show up in many forms. In the all or nothing trap, thinking that if you can't do something perfectly or completely, it's not worth doing at all. I've fallen into this countless times, believing that if I couldn't meditate for 30 minutes, there was no point in doing it for 2 minutes. Then we have the "I don't deserve it" whisper. This subtle belief that self-care is somehow self-indulgent or soft, or that you need to earn the right to take care of yourself, usually through burnout. I've heard this whisper many times in my own head. And then there's the too busy shield, using busyness as a way to avoid the discomfort that sometimes comes with slowing down and really noticing how we feel. I do this all the time. I make myself so busy. And now that I'm podcasting and posting on social media, and the pressure sometimes feels unbearable. What if I put the brakes on? The community I'm trying to build will just disappear. People are so fickle. Well, maybe they are, and maybe they aren't. That's not the point. I cannot fill from an empty cup, and slowing down for me is truly the hardest of all the things I need to do most when I'm fragile. And trusting that all is well, and the people meant to hear this message and share it will do just that. Again, it goes back to our theme from last week, that simple does not in any way mean easy to do. And then we have the "it won't work anyway" effect, the belief that nothing is going to help, so why bother trying? A big one for a lot of us, admit it. I want to offer a different perspective on resistance. What if we saw it not as an obstacle to overcome, but information to understand? What if resistance itself is trying to tell us something important? Next time you notice resistance to self-care, try asking yourself gently, what's behind this resistance? What am I really afraid of here? For me, I discovered that my resistance to slowing down often comes from fear of what it might feel if I'm not constantly distracted, fear of facing difficult, uncomfortable, complicated emotions. What's one form of resistance you've noticed in yourself? Can you approach it with curiosity rather than judgment? Remember, working with resistance, not against it, is itself a form of self-care. And sometimes the most compassionate thing we can do is acknowledge that resistance exists without trying to force our way through it. That acknowledgement is a tiny deposit too. And it also doesn't mean giving in to the resistance necessarily. This is an important distinction, and this is where my friend Grace is always there. Are we able to push ourselves gently, or do we need grace to let go and not push through? It's a delicate balance, and one you have to figure out for yourself through practice and consistency. Beautiful people, I know I've taken a little long, but I hope today's conversation helps shift our perspective on mental health support. Taking medication doesn't mean you failed. It means you're using every tool available. And medication alone isn't enough. True mental fitness requires tending to your whole selves, our whole selves. If you found value in today's episode, please take a moment to share it or leave a rating. It helps others find these conversations who might really need them. For more daily support and inspiration, visit my YouTube channel for bite-sized, nourishing videos. And next week, we're shifting our focus to supporting the supporters, an important conversation about the people who love and support those of us who are struggling with mental health challenges. These unsung heroes walk alongside us through our darkest moments, often without guidebooks or recognition. They witness our pain, adjust to our moods, and sometimes they have to absorb the sharp edges of our symptoms. Join me for this heartfelt conversation, where we will honor and explore how to honor their journey and acknowledge their struggles and build healthier dynamics that serve everyone involved. Because mental health isn't a solo journey. It affects and involves our entire circle of connection. Whether you're someone supporting a loved one with mental health challenges or someone being supported, this conversation is for you. Until then, beautiful people, remember, whatever your journey looks like, you are not alone. You are not behind. You are not too much. You are exactly where you need to be, growing at your pace. You are just human, learning to care for your whole self, one breath, one choice, one moment at a time. And as always, what comes from the heart reaches the heart. And today, like every day, with honesty, with compassion, and with hope, this comes straight from my heart to yours.